Hello everybody, welcome back to my Flight Simulator 2024 video series. Today we are going to be doing a full flight. I've got it loaded into the EFB and loaded it on SimBrief. It's going to be from Durham Tees Valley, from runway 23. It's going to follow this flight plan. And we are going to do the arrival procedure of LIST-1L into the ILS in 22 at Stansted Airport. So we'll get straight into it. So we're doing it in the Vision Jet G2 here, so first thing we'll remove the pitot cover, and the engine cover, and the chocks. There we go. Then I will click this button to open the door, and get into the plane. So I'm hoping the way that I've set this up, I have full ATC coverage this flight. So we'll go from the cold and dark setup. First thing we'll do when we get into the Vision Jet is remove these two safety straps. I'm going to load up the checklist. Done all the pre-starts, so we'll go from before starting the engine. So we've completed that. Parking brake is on. Battery switches are... yeah, so I'm going to turn both of them on. Like that. And turn both generators on. Like that. To starting the engines. So I'll just get my thruster up so I can go through the views. There we go, plug that in. Go down here, so it's rub light on. Thrust lever is to idle. Hold the brakes. And then we'll go down to the engine knob, turn it to run. Press the engine start button. We'll monitor here the engine instruments. We are currently at outside air temperature 15, so we don't need any ice protection. And the master oxygen switch on. Check when all the avionics are initialized. So I'm just waiting for the FMS position to come up. There we go. So I can go down to Garmin G3000, onto the initial fuel and do the FOB sync, and hit confirm for that. Onto next, set the empty weight. So we have just passenger and the co-pilot today. None of these. We have no cargo or baggage. I'll just double check these. Fine, just click init. Check these have all got ticks and click accept initialization. There we go. Then we will put the bleed switch on. And that is the starting of the engines all done. This. So I will go down to the G3000 here. Go on to the flight plan. You can see the flight plan here is already loaded up. I am quickly going to do is just load this up manually just in case anybody wants to see how that is done. So I'll delete this flight plan. Hit OK. Hit the origin of EGNV, I believe. So here EGNV. Echo Golf November Victor. There you go, Durham Tees. Click enter and hit the destination of EGSS, which is Stansted. I'm going to put in any procedures, which there isn't for a departure procedure, but I can hit destination here and select approach. The ILS into 22, probably from the BKY22 initial approach fix. I'm going to load that, hit load. I'm going to hit the same thing and hit select arrival. And then I'm going to load the LIST-1L arrival, which is this one here, into runway 22. Again, hit load. And we can do en route waypoints. So I know my first waypoint is going to be Golf Alpha Sierra Kilo Oscar Gasco. Hit enter. And that is going to be at flight level. I'll actually check that on SimBrief what flight level it's wanting in a second. So I'm going to hit this here and hit load airway, and it will be on the P16 airway. And we'll be going down to Ribble, I believe. And just double check on the flight plan. You see, I've got the flight plan here. If I scroll down, 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 down. We have gone past it. Where's the bit I'm looking for? There we go. So P16 to Ribble, so I can put that in. And hit load airway. Go back onto the flight plan. We can see it's the UP16 to Croft. Again, I will hit Ribble, load airway, UP16 to Croft. Hit load airway. Scroll this down to Croft, where we will be L612 to Listo, which is our first fix. The arrival, so click on Croft, load airway, L612, I believe. Yeah, L612 to Listo, load the airway, and then we'll be on to the arrival, so I will hit done there. I'll go back to this flight plan and I can just check when it says we should be at 2,700, which is our cruising altitude. So top of climb is on during the P16, so I can put that in. So it's the P16 airway. Expand the airway here. I'll put Ribble as 270 for the flight level. Hit enter, see it's changed, hit enter again, and it'll set that as our top of climb. There we go, that's loaded in. Next thing to do is set our minimums. We don't technically have to do this until we get anywhere close to the airport, but I like to be prepared and do it early, so I'm going to go onto the approaches for that ILS 22. Just zoom in at the bottom here, go Cat 1, C, 550, 550, and the barometer, and hit enter. I'm going to just make sure the speed bugs are on. And I'm going to select kind of our last fix before landing and set 91 into the speed for the auto throttle, so I know it will slow us down for the landing. There we go, we're all set up now, so I should now be able to hopefully contact the ATC if I've set this up properly. Go back and full screen this. We'll just go into the utilities, the initialization, takeoff data, taking off for runway 23. Required takeoff distance was takeoff distance ground 1608. Hit enter and hit initialization and accept it again there. There we go. So then I can full screen this and hopefully talk to the ATC. As always, tune ATIS first to get any ATIS information.
Teesside Airport Information Uniform 1000 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 9er. Sky condition clear. Temperature 15. Dew point 1 tree. QNH 101 tree 25. ILS runway 2 tree in use. Landing and departing runway 2 tree. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have uniform.
So we've got uniform. I'm going to request the IFR flight clearance.
Teesside Tower Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet, IFR to Stansted.
While we're doing
ready
this,
to copy.
I will just make sure that we have set up for takeoff. So I'm just going to hit the takeoff go around button, which is on the side of the thrust lever here. Hopefully that puts takeoff, so we're in takeoff configuration for the thrusts.
775 squawk 4 tree 02.
So I'll read back that.
Cleared to Stansted as filed runway 2 tree maintain FL280. Departure frequency is
FL280. Set that in the
squawk 4
autopilot.
02 Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet.
Papa Romeo Juliet readback is correct. Contact ground on 119er. 805.
Just confirm it's put the right squawk code in here, which is correct. Go back on that. I'm now going to request a taxi to the IFR.
Teesside Ground Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet with uniform ready to taxi IFR.
Ready to taxi IFR.
Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet taxi to and hold short of runway 23 via taxiway Alpha. Contact tower on 119er.
Next one's for taxiway Alpha. I'm just going to go outside. I'm going to turn off the taxi ribbon here. We are currently parked on the west apron, so taxiway Alpha is basically all the way down here. I'm assuming in real life, I'm not sure why the red X's are on there, but that's the way that we're going to taxi to uniform 23. And they've told us to contact tower when we are ready. I'll approve that.
Hold short runway 23 using taxiway Alpha Papa Romeo
External
Juliet.
view for the taxi. Disengage parking brakes. Hold a little bit of thrust in just to get going, and we'll taxi to the start of the runway. Straight through that man on the left. So today we're flying into Stansted. I have trial flown this flight, and I know Stansted is a very busy airport, so it's kind of crucial for your landing to have your go around set, because if you come in a little bit too slow or you're not coming in correctly, you will be told to go around because of the volume of traffic coming into Stansted Airport. A lot of big jets come in on this same ILS approach. So I will show you that later in the video. I have got a short video series on how to set up for the missed approaches. But yeah, it's definitely worth having them set up in case you do have to go around. Hopefully we don't today. Or maybe we'll get told to hold, depending on how busy it is when we arrive down at Stansted Airport. Apart from that, it's a fairly standard flight. Just a few changes on the ATC for who's going to approach us in, and it's quite a nice flight, quite a short flight, but a lot of waypoints to go through. And it's especially the flight level we're flying at, it's a nice flight to see all of England from the north down to the south. Here we go, coming down the taxiway now. Let's just make sure we are going the correct way, which we are. I don't believe that is our hold short, because it's not got any signage on either side. And that's in case if it was busy down here, that's where we would line up if we're number 2 for takeoff. Just while we're lining up, I'm going to go into weather, and I've been doing videos, so I'm just going to make sure that we're on real-time weather, which we are. I'll just put live weather on. At some point it might jump. You can see here we've got a 23 in red, so we know this is a hold short for runway 23, which is exactly what we want. I'll just line up with that. There we go, apply the brakes, apply the parking brakes, go internal. Go to this, and I'll put the probe heat on now that I'm ready to take off. And I'll put our landing lights on. I'm going to set up takeoff, so I'm going to change my trim so this figure here goes blue. Anywhere between like 3 and 6 degrees for the takeoff trim is normally good. I'm going to go to 4 today. Put in 1 notch of flaps. There we go. We've got the takeoff armed. We've got what our cruising altitude is going to be, or our designated altitude from the ATC. Once we take off, once radio altimeter comes to 500, I will apply the autopilot and then put it into nav mode and apply the auto throttle to make sure that it's climbing us at the optimum speed to our designated altitude. After I've done that, I'll hit FLC and it'll start climbing us then. So I'm going to request the takeoff clearance now.
Teesside Tower Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet at runway 23 ready for departure IFR to Stansted.
Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet QNH 1015. Cleared for takeoff, runway 23.
There we go. Acknowledge the takeoff clearance.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 2 Tree Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo
Just engage the
Juliet.
parking brakes. If you get this message here, take off from edge of the factory, I think that's just a little bit of a bug with the Vision Jet. I'm not 100% sure. I need to read into it to see if it's actually something I'm doing wrong. From what I can see, it doesn't affect any takeoffs. You don't have to worry about it. It comes up every time I try to take off in this plane. So currently, it's not caused me to crash, which is always a good thing. There it is again. So line up with the runway here. Close this. There we go. Last thing I'll do before takeoff, bring the heading bug in case we have to go to heading mode to hold the heading direction, the runway direction. Apply the brakes, go half throttle, and then go full throttle, disengage the brakes. See, underneath the speed, it had our rotation speed, which will come up as a bug from there in a second. There you can see rotation speed is about 85 knots. There we go, rotate at that. On the right you can see we've got positive rate of climb, so I'm going to gear up. The flaps up around 115. Watching that radio altimeter, waiting for 500 feet basically. Push up a little bit to about 10 degrees. I'll just kind of hold that pitch. There's 500. Apply the autopilot. Manchester Centre. I'll acknowledge that handoff.
118-775 for Papa Romeo Juliet.
Just while we're doing this, tune Manchester Centre. Light level change. Activated. Nav mode. Activated. Auto throttle. Activated. Autopilot is now flying us on our designated flight path.
Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet is passing 2,000 feet, climbing FL 280.
You can see our outside air temperature is now 11 degrees. I'm going to go down here and engage some of the de-icing. If you see the windscreen or the airframe de-icing quite badly, you can hit the high, but I don't think I need to at this point. So we've got radar contact and continue to gas go. So that's what we will do. I might speed up the video at this point, and I'll just show you when we get to kind of our top of our climb, or if anything else happens that is useful to know about. So at this point, I will see you when we next get something important. We're just passing through 10,000 feet, so I know that at 10,000 feet I can turn the landing lights off. So there we go, at 10,000 feet, landing lights are now off. I'm going to right click on this to put us into standard parameter settings. Technical transition altitude is 6,000 feet, I think, across the UK. So that's when you can set it to standard barometer, and they basically won't read out a QNH until you are descending or coming back through your transition altitude. Here we are, coming up to our cruising altitude now. You can see we've got a pretty hefty crosswind, almost 100 knots, kind of from the front right. So the plane is crabbing along the course. If I go to the external view, some nice chemtrails. Contrails. Yeah, contrails. This is kind of the direction we're moving. This is the way the plane's pointing, and that's just because of the crosswind. So now we're at the cruising altitude. I will just go down to... Yeah, I'll show you some of the important information on here. We've got a ground speed here. and our track and our course. This is the estimated time en route to the next waypoint, so 4 minutes till we get to Croft, going down because we're levelling out. This is our distance to the next waypoint. This is our en route to the destination, en route, so in about an hour and 29 minutes we'll arrive at Stansted. See the cruising altitude of 28,010, and we've got 23 minutes and dropping until we get to the top of the descent. So I will then go down to this view, open up the charts, and I will now go on to our Stansted charts. We'll have a look at the Listo arrival, which is on this one here. And I'll just check that the speed constraints and altitude constraints are set for directly to the charts. Here we've got altitude constraint here at Rugby. I'll scroll down here to Rugby and double check it's got the altitude constraint of 200, which is correct. Inma is 150. Again, flight level 150, 15,000 feet, that is correct. We go along. Bomber, we've got max of 250 knots. Again, that's correct, it's got the speed constraint here. And as we turn around here, we've got Buster, 220 knots. Again, we've got the speed constraint in. We've got max of 220 knots and a flight level at 70, which is 7,000 feet at Laurel, which is again correct. Possibly a hold here at Bomber, which we could put in if we get told to hold. And again, possibly a hold here at Laurel. Do not proceed beyond Laurel without ATC clearance, so that's something to bear in mind. So if we need to put in a hold, we can put in a hold here. I'll just show you how to do that now. So if we're going to put in a hold at Laurel, we would click Laurel. I'd put hold at the waypoint. The turn is going to be a left-hand turn. So here we're turning left. Inbound to Laurel is 187. 187. Leg time I'm going to leave at 1 minute 30. You could change that, or you could change the length or a distance if you knew the distance it was asking. Cylinders are going to be at flight level 70 to 140 depending on what flight level we are when we cross this. It's all fine. I'll click create and you can see we've got a hold here. I want to delete that hold because we'd get told not to hold at Laurel. Click here and we'll hit remove hold. I'll keep it in for now just in case we get told to hold there depending on how busy it is. And then I'll go back and check the ILS charts for the approach. So I'm going to go on the initial approach from ILS for ILS 22 here. So here from Laurel, we go down to the BKY. It's here. Out and round. That was me that was talking to, I don't think it was. No, not Cafe. So radial and a radial 66 from BKY. 6,000 feet here, that's fine. BK16 is 4,000 feet. Scroll down, we just passed a waypoint. And then round. Actually sending us out to here, which I'm not sure why it wouldn't just send us to here, but it might send us out to here. You can see 6,000 feet for BKY22, that's all fine. Abbott we're on a descent, and then 4,000 feet at 16.5, which is this one here. That's all fine. So all that's programmed in. And then we'll go onto the actual ILS chart. And just zoom into the bottom. See our final fix is here at D6.6. It's fine, that's final approach fix at 2,500 feet, so that's programmed. Like I say, I've automatically put 921 in here, which is around here to ensure that the plane automatically slows us down. If I wanted to, I could pick one of these. Let's say 4, and I'm just going to put in, go onto the checklist, onto our, actually have it on here, but I think from what I remember, our approach speed for this is going to be around, call it 105 knots. Put that in so it will gradually slow us down when we're on the approach. We could go over the missed approach. Once we've flown over the missed approach point, we would go at a heading of 222 to 3,000 feet or below. And then we are going to right turn at maximum of 185 knots, round to D8. Again, I can check all that. 185 knots, 3,000 feet. Fronting us 3,000 feet at BKY. There we go. Below heading of 222, climb to a max of 3,000 feet. 3.1 ISX, we're going to right turn at a maximum of 85 to intercept a radial of 171 BKY, and then climb to 3,000 feet. There we go. We've checked all our approach charts and our arrival charts. We know everything's set into the autopilot, so we're confident that we'll be able to do this without any problems. I'll set up the missed approach when we get to end of the actual approach procedure, and I will speed up the video until we get an ATC call or we begin our descent. So I'll see you at that point.
Vertical track.
We've just got the vertical track warning. I have set 20,000 feet into my altimeter because I know that's going to be the next flight level we need. Sometimes the ATC doesn't pick this up, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to request that our cruising altitude decreases by 8,000 feet to get us down to that 20,000 feet. We'll see if they let us do that.
Request FL200.
There you go, so they've said we can descend and maintain to that altitude. I'll acknowledge that instruction. Because I've set it up, I know that in 20 seconds it's going to automatically do that for us. The magenta here, it's picked up the altitude and we're in. The V path is armed, so it should automatically, when we get to this top of descent, just drop us down to 20,000 feet. There we go, it's starting to do it now. V path is now active. So it'll just naturally take us down to that flight level for the next waypoint. If the ATC doesn't tell us to go down to 15,000 feet at the next one, I'll do exactly the same thing. So I'll just pre-select that 15,000 feet, which is our next altitude on the chart. Just bring up the chart here. We're going down to 20,000 here, flight level 200, flight level 150, or 15,000 feet. I've got pre-selected, just in case I need to hit flight level change to take us down to that. Hoping the ATC automatically does that for us, but like I say, sometimes the default ATC doesn't realise that on your arrivals, and it keeps you at like your flight level and causes you to do a really steep descent, which is not ideal. Again, on this screen over here, we've got the bottom or the VNAV profile. We know that in 6 minutes 43 seconds we're going to get down to that flight level of 20,000 feet or flight level 200. I can verify that we've got enough fuel for the rest of the flight because it's telling us when we cross Rugby we should have 88 gallons. So this and this added together is this number here, so this should say 88 at that point. Then to the left of us here. I'm spotting in the clouds. I'm not, because the clouds are very, very dense. This one's 2,700 feet above us. This one is just at our altitude now. He's climbing above, so now he's 100 feet above us. There we go. That's to contact London Centres, so we'll acknowledge that when we can. Very busy airspace at the moment, so lots of ATC messages coming through. You have to jump in as soon as you can.
118 for 75 Papa Romeo Juliet.
Tune that and contact them.
London Center Golf. Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet is at FL220, descending FL200.
So we can continue to Finma, which is all good. Breaking the cloud layer here, see a lower cloud layer that's showing some thick stuff here.
Climb and maintain FL tree 60 speedbird 1434.
The autopilot should possibly beep to tell us we're coming to our designated altitude. Maybe not. There you go, you can see that we've got 15,000 feet as required, so again I will request we decrease the cruising altitude 5,000 feet.
Request 15,000 feet. Papa Romeo Juliet descend.
They told us we could do that, so we can just carry on descending down to 15,000. Again, check the chart for our next altitude. It's going to be 7,000 feet. At Laurel is our next hard altitude. So if we get anywhere close to that and we need to descend again, we'll check the VNAV and request that if the ATC hasn't already told us to go down to that altitude. So a bit of sunshine shining through the clouds at this point. Between two very nice cloud layers, you can just about make out the ground below us through the bottom one. Beautiful. We go to this here, we can see we've got a BOD or a bottom of descent marker, so that tells us when we're going to actually reach this bottom of descent point. Half screen this with weather on the other screen, or on this screen, zoom out. If we scroll out, we've got no severe weather anywhere close to us, so that's all good. Just a lot of cloud cover. Just full screen that again. Again, because we're in VNAV, I can select our next altitude. Just as a reminder to myself, which is 7,000 feet at Laurel. Check the chart, we can see flight level 7,000 for Laurel here. I'd rather be at the lower altitude, so I know I'm on track for my ILS approach. Again, the hold, you can be anywhere between flight level 70 and flight level 140, so 7,000 feet and 14,000 feet.
London Center EZ2101 is at
we go, so coming up to the bottom of descent now. See again, bottom of descent marker is on here. Down to here, it's on here as well. And VNav is telling us in 20 seconds, that's when we'll reach that. Zoom this in a little bit, make that a little bit clearer. That bottom descent is here on the turn. There we go, so we've got a top of descent marker here if we want to make 7,000 feet. So again, I'll check our VNav profile, how far away we are from it. So about maybe 45 seconds I'll request 7,000 feet from the ATC. So for this one I might just not request it and just see if the ATC automatically takes us down to that flight level. Just reset this and turn off the VNav, so it's just going to hold us at 15,000 feet, and we'll see what the actual what the ATC tells us to do at this point, see if it works or if it's still not taking us down for the actual arrival that we've got programmed in. There we go. We've asked for 28,000 feet for some reason, so we'll put that in first. There we go, 5,000 feet. But I might do that. So we can go 5,000 feet. I'll just acknowledge this so they don't shout at us. Acknowledge the assigned approach.
Descend and maintain 5,000
There we
feet.
go.
Expect ILS runway.
Descend and maintain 5,000. 5,000 in, hit flight level change.
Clear to BKY 22 Papa Romeo Juliet.
Procedure. ILS, clear to BK2Y. And activate that now. And hit OK. Going to take us straight to BK2Y at a designated altitude. Now open up the chart for the BK2Y approach. So we'll go initial approach for initials for ILS 22. Zoom in here. So we are going directly to BK2Y, which is out here, which is the initial approach fix. Again, I'm not sure why it hasn't just given us the Laurel one, which would fly us this way. It's going to take us all the way out. I'm going to do a big circle. If I go to this screen over here, you can see what it's doing for us now. Scroll out here, right click this, and move this up here to zoom in. Zoom in here. So it's taking us all the way out and doing a big right hand turn to get us to the BK2Y, which turns us back into Abbott. That. Reset the view, so we're coming out here and then doing a big turn from here to come into Abbott. Back through 10,000 feet now, so I'll go to this view and I'll turn my landing lights on. Like I say, when we get 6,000 feet, that's when we can reset this to giving QNH. So I'll hit that there, just double check what it said the QNH was. Was the QNH setting it should have done? Maybe not. I'll just assume it's what it was before until they give us a designated QNH. As soon as we get around to kind of BK2Y, I will check. I'll actually fly a little bit on this chart before we switch across to the actual approach chart. You can see the approach chart starts here, so I'll just stay on this chart for now once we're flying this. Again, there's another hold here if we need to, so we could program this in case we get told to hold at Abbott depending on traffic. That would be a right hand turn with an inbound of 264. Make it down south of England at the moment, you can see. Some grey clouds about. It's a bit overcast here where I am, but I'm north of England, so always nicer in the north. saying about 71 knots for actual landing speed, so we'll aim for that once we cross the runway threshold for wheels down. Reset the view. Like I say, the ATC is a bit weird because on the actual approach chart it's telling us we need to be at 6,000 feet at BK2Y. It's told us to go down to 5,000 feet, so we'll just respect what the ATC is saying and see if it brings us in properly. So I'm actually going to take the QNH setting that you just called out to another aircraft that there for 1016, which I'm assuming will be the same QNH for us. Quickly bring up the parking chart for EGSS. It's ground chart. We're landing on this. I'm assuming it's going to take us down to here. So we want to left turn off the runway as soon as we can. So again, we've already set up our minimums, so 550 feet for minimums. That's the minimum altitude on the barometer that we need to have visual indication for the runway, so the PAPI lights and the actual visual indications coming out of the runway to confirm we can land. If we don't have that by 550 feet, we would initiate the go-around. Fairly confident we're going to have that, seeing as though we can see the ground now at 5,000 feet. There we go, telling us to descend and maintain 3,000 feet, so we'll follow what the ATC wants. And it's slight level change for 3,000 feet. And acknowledge the instruction.
Descend and maintain 3,000
Taking us
feet.
very low here for some reason. There you go, even the plane knows it's just pointing us down at the floor for some reason. We've got loads of visibility below this cloud layer, so I don't think we're going to have any problems with the landing. We're 5 minutes away from BKY22, which is the initial approach fix. So we've got a little bit of time, so no panicking. Fairly confident I'll set up anyway. At this point we're just waiting for them to hand us over to the approach, which will tell us to contact and then the tower for when we are inbound. So we'll see when that happens. Again, it's always a coin flip with the default ATC on if they're going to give us the correct ATC callouts at the correct time. go back to our approach chart. You can see here the 6.6 is this one here, our ISX 6.6. That's where our final approach fix is going to be when we come around this corner, so that's where we will arm the approach. So when it should capture the glide slope around that point. So again, still plenty of time. No need to panic. So the auto throttle sped up, so we must be far enough away from Stansted to increase our speed to 220 knots. Like I say, lots of ATC call-outs. Stansted, a very busy airport. Always fun and interesting flying into here. And the VNAV mode again, just in case we need to do a vertical navigation, but I think we're well below any of the designated altitudes in here, so I don't think we'll need to do this at any point. Into the BKY22 to do the right turn to come back round to Abbott. So this is why I think this is a bit of a silly approach for it to tell us, because this is normally you come from kind of this direction here, fly to BK2Y and straight to Abbott. And I feel like it should have given us the Laurel approach, but you know, we do what it tells us. But you can see it's switched, so it will now do the right turn for us. Ooh, yeah, tired.
Papa Romeo Juliet, you are 20 miles northeast of Stansted. Contact Stansted Tower on 125.
There we go.
5 when inbound.
So we'll acknowledge that.
Tower on 125. 55 Papa Romeo Juliet.
1, 2, 5, 5, 5. And switch that across. So once we are on the approach, so that's normally when I'm active on the localizer, I will contact the tower to let them know we are inbound. They'll let us know if we can land or not. At this point, be thinking about getting set up with the approach, if I hadn't already, but I know I'm already kind of briefed and set up for it. And now set our heading to 222, which is going to be our missed approach. We won't need to use the heading hook for us to flight unless we need to manually fly the missed approach. There we go, heading set to 222, so that's set up for the missed approach. And I'll just check what our next altitude below us is. It's 2,500 feet, so I'll set this to 2,500 feet as a reminder of what our next hard altitude limit is going to be. Flying to Abbott now, arriving at Abbott in 30 seconds. go, crossed habit. Next waypoint in a minute, which is EKY16, which technically on the flight plan says 4,000 feet. So what I might do at this point is just put in speed from the final approach fix of 190. Just put it as 185, so then I know I can drop the landing gear and the first notch of flaps at that speed. Just taken away all the speed constraints, so I'll just put them back in. Hit enter on that, and I'll hit 91 knots, which is what I'm going to aim for coming up to the runway. Go passing EKY now. Once we get to intercept, I'll attempt to arm the approach and see if it arms for us.
Vertical track.
There we go, vertical track. It knows that we are wanting to descend to 2,500 feet with the VNAV. When this gets down to here, it will start automatically descending all the way to confirm. Check on here with this full screened. Top of the descent in 40 seconds. It's dropping us down to 85 knots. Sorry, 185 knots, not 85 knots. Turning us into the intercept now, so I'll attempt to arm the approach mode. Armed, localizer is armed, glide slope is armed. As soon as the localizer is captured, we'll contact the tower. Coming in now, coming into our descent as well. Taking us down to 2,500 feet, which we know is what we need for our approach. I'm just going to switch this across to localizer 1, which, there we go. So now that this is at localizer 1, we're on the localizer. Contact Stansted. Let them know we're on the approach.
Tower Golf, Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet 9 miles northeast inbound ILS runway 22 approach.
Put the landing gear as we're below 210 knots.
Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet Stansted Tower. QNH 1017 cleared.
1017 for the QNH.
To approach.
Cleared for the approach, I'll acknowledge that. And drop the first notch of
ILS
flaps.
runway 22 approach Papa Romeo Juliet.
There we go, we're on the glide slope now, so I can set up for this approach. So now I've got my heading set at 222. Now we are established on the glide slope. I can raise this to what we need to fly for what our altitude would be for a missed approach, which is here, 3,000 feet. I go set for the missed approach, so I know I can fly that manually. If I need to go missed, I would full throttle, hit FLC to climb to here and hit heading mode, or once I've passed the approach fix, change nav source to FMS1, hit procedure, and activate the missed approach. I have a video on how to do that with the Garmin G3000 and the 1000 manually. I'll link the video somewhere up above if anybody's interested in learning how to do that. There we go. If I zoom in here, just reset the view and go forward one. You can see the PAPI lights and I can see the runway, so I know that I am definitely going to be attempting to land at this point. Just confirm I'm set up for landing. 1 notch of flaps. Landing gear is confirmed down. 105 knots for the approach speed, so the auto throttle is taking us in at that speed.
Papa Romeo Juliet wind 160 at 5. Cleared to land runway 22.
We're in 160 at 5 knots, so I can acknowledge that landing clearance.
Cleared to land runway 22 Papa Romeo Juliet.
Minimums is 550. That's when, around that time, I will disengage the autopilot. All these fuel warnings, just hit this button here to kind of mute them fuel warnings. We're about 0 degrees, so there I probably should have turned the probe heater off in flight, but it's fine. I'm just going to leave the de-icing on for now, just in case, and ensure that it doesn't cause any problems for the landing. Very much hoping that's the one that's just taken off, so there's nothing on the runway now at this point. Bit worried that sometimes they stay on the runway when you're coming in for an approach and you have to do the go around. Comes back on the controls at 1,000 feet. There you go, throttle's taken us down to 91 knots, which is what our kind of landing speed across the threshold should be, and we're in with this green dot when we're actually wheels down. This green target here shows us where the plane will actually go with our current heading. So that's 500 on the radio altimeter. So at this point, I'm going to disengage the autopilot and I'll manually fly this in. There we go. Keeping that runway line as centered as we can. Up is a 2 white 2 red, so 3 red now, I'm slightly below. I'll just put a little bit of thrust in.
Minimums.
There's the minimums call out, but we're already confirmed to land. Fly back to the glide slope there. There we go. Point the nose down. Thrust is now at idle as we cross the threshold. Aiming for that all that rubber on the runway where everybody else has landed. At about 20 on the radio altimeter. I'm just going to pitch back a little bit to let us glide in. There we go. Just gently put it down.
Easy Tree Niner Stansted Tower. QNH 1017 cleared.
There we go.
ILS runway 22
Engage the
approach.
brakes. Roll out to the taxi point. No, I checked the chart earlier. Taxi point's about halfway down the runway. I'll get to follow this yellow line off the runway. Increase the speed.
Papa Romeo Juliet, turn next taxiway.
Romeo Juliet turning next taxiway. Flaps up.
Papa Romeo Juliet, contact ground on 121. 7 tree.
Go. Got the hand off to ground, so I'll contact ground now.
121. 7 tree Papa Romeo Juliet.
Pull up the charts for the airport. Tune ground. Stop at this checkered line here. There we go. And I will taxi to parking.
Ground Golf. Yankee
Ground
Papa
chart up.
Romeo Juliet.
See if we can
request
follow it
taxi
on the
to
chart.
parking.
Golf. Yankee Papa Romeo Juliet taxi to General Aviation, parking via taxiway November Romeo November cross runway 22 Victor.
Acknowledge that. So November Romeo
Taxi to General
November.
Aviation, parking via taxiway November Romeo November cross runway 22 Victor Papa Romeo Juliet.
So we're going to go November Romeo November cross runway 22 Victor. Assuming if we open up our taxi markers, is it going to show us it? No. So we'll just hopefully do this.
Papa Romeo Juliet, hold position, caution, departing generic.
Holding position.
Papa Romeo Juliet, continue
That's
taxi.
not be what it does. Turn that flight director off. Push the continue taxi.
Roger Papa Romeo Juliet.
November Romeo November. Just double check this taxi again. It wanted us to go. Actually showing us, so I'm going to assume we're going this way. Seems like Victor is across there. Is an airplane taken off there? So where are you wanting us to go down now? Cross from there onto Victor. I'm assuming is what we're on now. Where's Victor go? Doesn't really say. Go down here and park it down here somewhere. Go park it next to this big plane over here. There's a Spirit there. This is definitely not where I should be parking, but it isn't giving me the taxi ribbon, and I'm not great at knowing when I'm supposed to be taxiing to. I'm just going to assume it wants to park me down here. There we go, just pull in here. By the parking brakes. And as we go onto the checklist for plane to shut down. Thrust flight shut down. Thrust lever is idle. Ice protection all off. Fairly easy. Thrust lever idle, and you basically just go along all of these switches. Bleed set to fresh air. Strobe heat off. Master oxygen off. All lights off. Generator switches off. And before we turn the battery off, turn this to off and hit this to turn the engine off. The N2 comes below 24. It does at this point. So thrust, ice protection, bleed, oxygen, lights is off, generator's off, engine's off, that's fresh. N2 has gone down, and then we can turn the power and brakes off. There we go. So that was a full flight in the Vision Jet G2. I hope that's helped some of you out. If it has, feel free to give me a like, and if you've got any questions or problems, just drop a comment below, and I will see you in the next videos.